Sponsorship, the Talmud sponsorship. Shkoyach. With that, let's begin. New parak. Ha'omer Mishkali Alai. Very fascinating sugi you have in front of us today. Person says, I hereby pledge my weight to the Beis HaMikdash. It's a good diet motivator, by the way, right? Right? The more you weigh, the more you pay. So says the Mishnah, Omer Mishkali Alai. A person says, I hereby dedicate my weight to the Beis HaMikdash. No sein Mishkalo. He pays his weight. He pays his weight. Im kasef, kasef. Im zav, zav. If he, now again, we'll see what this statement means. If in silver, silver, and if in gold, gold. Ma'aseh be'ima shel Yermatya. There was a story about the mother of Yermatya. Rashi says, Shem Ha'isha. This is a woman's name. Right? Yermatya was a woman, and her mother one time said, Sha'amar Mishkal Biti Alai. One time her mother said, I pledge the value of my daughter to the Beis HaMikdash. Excuse me, the weight of my daughter to the Beis HaMikdash. Va'asa Yerushalayim, the mother went up to Yerushalayim, B'shakla Mishkala Zahav. And ultimately, again, she paid the weight of her daughter in gold to the Beis HaMikdash. So we'll see exactly what this story is coming to add. Mishkal Yadi, we'll say what happens if a person pledges the weight of their arm. Interesting case. Weight of their arm. So obviously the shaila is going to become, how do you assess the weight of your arm? Rabbi Yehuda Omer Memale Chavis Mayim. Rabbi Yehuda says you fill up a barrel of water, umachnisa ad marfiko, and you insert the arm up until the shoulder. So you insert your arm up until the shoulder. Vishokel, and Abba says, obviously when that happens, you displace a corresponding amount of water. So it's interesting to note here is as follows. Then, that's step one, right? Step one, fill a barrel of water. Your arm up until the shoulder in the barrel. Now that you've displaced the water, step three, then you go ahead and you take donkey flesh, right? Donkey, a piece of donkey flesh, the meat together with the bones, the skin, whatever else. You put that in the barrel until ultimately, again, it raises the water level until the point that it was before you inserted your arm. We'll say you then take that piece of donkey meat, that amount of donkey meat, and that's the amount that you weigh corresponding to the gold, silver, whatever else. That becomes the weight of your arm. Rabbi Yossi says, "V'chi heich echshar lechavein basar kineged basar, vatzamos kineged vatzamos." So it's interesting. Rabbi Yossi says, "But one second, how does that work? Right? How can you be sure that it's the right amount of bone, it's the right amount of flesh?" What he says, what Rabbi Yossi is saying is, you can't really be so exact with that. In other words, you're not going to get to an exact weight. Rather, Ella shaman es hayad kama shiru yelishko. Rabbi Yossi says, rather, we could just simply assess, right? I guess people who are a bit more skilled in this could assess the weight of the arm by looking at it, by holding it, or as well as essentially what we're going to Rabbi Yossi saying is, look, the use of the donkey meat is a guesstimate, right? It's not exact. It's not exact. So once you're using an imprecise mechanism to measure the limb, to measure the weight of the limb, you might as well just go ahead and be imprecise by just looking at it or by just holding it. There's no need to go through this whole water displacement, donkey flesh thing. Okay, so machlokes about how to measure the arm, and Mirat Hashem we'll see in the Gemara. But see, here we go. Sorry. So here we go. My im kasef, im zazav. Let's say, what is the meaning? What is the meaning of the statement? If it's silver, silver, and if it's gold, gold. We'll say, what does that mean? So Amar Rabbi Yehuda, perish kasef, kasef, perish zahav, zahav. Rabbi will say what it means is as follows. What it means is as follows. If halacha l'maisa, you articulated silver, then ultimately paid off in silver. If you've articulated gold, then paid off in gold. I was supposed to say a very important, on a very simple level. If you pledged your weight in silver, then you paid off in silver. If you pledged your weight in gold, you paid off in gold. To which the Gemara says pshita. So I don't say, why does Mishnah need to teach you that? If I make a neder and I say I hereby pledge my weight to the Beis HaMikdash in gold, of course I'm going to pay it in gold. If I say I pledge my weight in silver, I'm paid in silver. Why does the Mishnah have to say this? Hakamash malon taima de pirish. So the Mishnah is coming to teach me the reason I have to pay in silver or I have to pay in gold is because that is the amount that I have articulated. Ha lo piresh, If you did not articulate it, then pater nafshe b'choltuhu. Then Rabbi say you could pay off your obligation in whatever material you want. So we'll say, so what the Mishnah is telling me is like this: if I went ahead and I pledged my weight in gold to the Beis Hamikdash, then I have to pay it off in gold or in silver. Anytime I articulate the material in which I'm going to pay off my weight, that's the material I have to use. The chiddush is, let's say I didn't articulate the material. I just said I pledge my weight to the Beis Hamikdash, but I did not articulate what type of material I'm going to pay in. Then the novelty is that halacha l'maisa, I could use any material I want. Kirachba, as Rachba said, Dama Rachba, ba'asra the takli kufra pater nafshe afila b'kufra. But say if you live in a place where they measure out pitch, right? Where they measure out pitch, ultimately, again, you can pay out your value in pitch. Pitch obviously is a very cheap material. So what it's saying is, if halacha l'maisa, you live in a place where they go ahead and they measure out pitch by weight as opposed to by volume. So halacha l'maisa, you could use that to satisfy your neder as well. To which the Gemara says, but again, pshita, is that not obvious? In other words, what's the chiddush in that? Lo tzricha di'ika detakal v'ika dekayal. Because we'll say, for example, kufra, pitch, is an example of something that some people measure out by weight and other people measure out by volume. So what would you have said? Ma'u detema kevan dekulhu lo takli lo. I'm going say that the only thing you could use in satisfaction of this type of neder is something that is exclusively weighed. But something that is sometimes weighed and something that is measured out by volume perhaps should not be usable. Kamash malan, that is not the case, right? Kamash malan, that halacha l'maisa, again, that Rabbi say even something that halacha l'maisa is sometimes weighed and sometimes measured could still be used to satisfy the obligation. So Rabbi say, so therefore again what the Gemara seems to be saying like this is as follows: that halacha l'maisa, if a person makes an explicit neder and they pledge their way to the Beis Hamikdash and they articulate which type of material they're going to use to satisfy that obligation, obviously that's what they have to carry through on. If they make no particular mention of a particular material, they pledge their weight but don't make a mention of their material, you could use anything you want as long as it is something that is normally weighed. Even if it is something that is not exclusively weighed, as long as it's sometimes weighed, or I should say specifically weighed where you are living, then you could use that material to satisfy your obligation. Amar Papa, ba'asra de takli shichmi, pater nafshi afila b'shichmi. So Papa says, in a place where they weigh, Rashi says, shichmi are bitzalim, onions. In a place where they weigh onions, you could even use onions to go ahead and satisfy your obligation. So the Gemara says, Pshita, that's obvious. Lo tzricha de basar de shakli, shadu trei tlasa. I will say, here's the difference. Often when you go ahead and you purchase onions, even if you're buying onions by weight, it's common for the merchant to throw in 2 or 3 extra onions. So I might have thought that because of that, halacha l'maisa, it's not really called being sold by weight. Whereas since the merchant himself is not so makbid on the weight, he's going to throw in a couple of extra onions. Maybe onions are something that are not called an item that are weighed. To which the Gemara says, Ma'udetema, batal Torah's mishkal, because he throws in some extra merchandise even after the merchandise is weighed. I might have thought that onions is not something that is weighed. Kamashlan, that's not the case. Kamashlan, that even onions are considered to be something that is weighed, and therefore even that material, even those items, can be used to satisfy the neder. So both say that is indeed the halacha l'maisa. Maisa be'ima shayir matya. So remember again. So both say remember the flow of the Mishnah. So now, based on what we just learned, what the Mishnah means is like this. If a person says, I hereby pledge my weight in gold, they have to pay it in gold. If they said, I pledge my weight in silver, they have to pay it in silver. Then the Gemara tells a story of the mother of Yermatya. Now I will say, what Yermatya's mother said is, Mishkal biti alai. She said, I hereby pledge the weight of my daughter. What didn't she say? What? With what? She did not indicate what material she was going to go ahead and satisfy that obligation with. And then the Mishnah says, and she paid it off in gold. So says the Gemara, Maisa Lister, I don't understand. Is the story coming to contradict that which we just said before. As Rabbi say, what the story seems to indicate is that she didn't obligate herself in gold, yet she had to pay gold. But that's not what we learned in the first statement of the Mishnah. The first statement of the Mishnah says you're only obligated in gold if what? If you articulate gold. Well, she didn't articulate gold, so why is she paying off in gold? To which the Gemara says, indeed, there's a piece missing from Mishnah, and here is what is written. Im adam chashavhu, afagav delo parish lefi kavodo amdinan. It's changed to amdinan. I will say that if a person is a adam chashav, someone very important, then even if they did not particularly articulate which type of material they're going to pay off their obligation with, we assess them in accordance with their heightened standing. The Gemara tells a story. Umaisa be'ima shal Yirmatya sha'amra mishkal biti alai, because there was a story with the mother of Yirmatya who pledged the weight of her daughter. Va'alsal Yerushalayim v'shakluha v'nasna mishkal azaz. So we'll say einachinami, the halacha that we just said before, that in general you have the right to articulate what type of material. And if you don't articulate the type of material, then you can pay whatever you want. That's assuming you're not an Adam Chashav. If you're an Adam Chashav, someone very important, then halacha l'maisa, we objectively assess you in accordance with your standing and means. V'haraya, the mother of Yirmatya, just pledged her daughter's weight to the Beis HaMikdash. She shows up at the Beis HaMikdash and they assess her to pay in gold. Why? Because that was in accordance with her standing. Good. I'm Rabbi Yehuda. We'll say we go right there. Excuse me. I'm Rabbi Yehuda. Ha'omer komasi alai. We'll say interesting case. But now we're going to use different types of lashonas, right? Remember again, we started out with the statement of mishkali alai. I hereby pledge my weight. So my weight is a pretty objective statement. I mean, it's a subjective statement, but it's objectively understandable. We're going to now deal with some other lashonos which are just a bit more ambiguous, and to try to figure out what to do with them. Amar Yehuda, Omer komasi alai. But let's say a person says, koma literally means height or stature. Right? The person says, I hereby pledge my height, my stature to the Beis HaMikdash. So what's the halacha? No sein sharvit she'ino nichfaf. So we'll say, if you look at Rashi, by the way, not Rashi, I'm sorry, the Rabbeinu Gershom. Rabbeinu Gershom is on the bottom right-hand corner of the page. If you look in the second set of wide lines, actually, make it a little simpler, 6 lines are from the bottom of Rabbeinu Gershom. He writes, Komasi alai kilomar, losis shir komasi shal kesef o shal zav lahekdish. Person pledges their height or their stature in gold or in silver to the Beis HaMikdash. No saying sharvit. You give a staff. Rashi says over here, Rabbeinu Gershom says, Shal kesef of shir nichbach me'atzmo hoil va'amar komaso kilomar davar shiyachol lekayim me'atzmo shir nichfav. So we'll say, what does he have to do? He has to give a staff of silver that is the equivalent of his height, of his stature, that is unbendable. Koma, a stature, means not just simply a height, but an unbendable height. So you have to give a thick silver staff, the size, the height, your height, that is unbendable to the Beis HaMikdash, or the value. Obviously, you don't have to give the staff itself, but you would have to give the value of that type of staff. Malo kamasi. So what happens if a person says, my full height, or my full stature? So what's the halacha? No sin sharvet hanichbav. You give the same height of the staff, but this staff can be bendable, right? This staff doesn't have to be solid, doesn't have to be stiff. So we'll say, so the logic over here, if you look at it, again, the Rabbeinu Gershom, Mole komasi no sin savage nichvav kilomar, kevan dar melo komasi bilvad shehe aruch komosi kama afilu daka. The lashon of melo means my complete height, my complete stature, indicates that the hakpada, what he's really being mapped over here, is the height and not necessarily, again, the firmness of the stature. Therefore, you could give the value of a silver staff, but the staff doesn't have to be something that is stiff. It could be even the type of staff which could bend, which would obviously be less expensive. Meise, is that true? After all, the Brisa says, Komasi alai, mole komasi alai, no sin sharvit shenichbav. Whether a person says my height or my full height, he gives the value of a silver staff that cannot be bent. So which the Gemara says, so what's going on over here? So Rabbi Yehuda holds, Hud Amar Rabbi Akiva. So Rabbi Yehuda holds like Rabbi Akiva. What does Rabbi Akiva say? The Dayik Lishna Yisera. We'll say Rabbi Akiva says that essentially, Whenever you say something extra that doesn't have to be said, we understand that you're trying to convey something additional. This nan. Well, listen to this interesting case. Loas habar veloas hados. Afa pisha kasov umka veroma. V'tzarech likach lo derech divrei Rabbi Akiva. So if you look at Rashi for just a moment, Rashi says over here, Loas habar hamucher sabayis lomacher sabar. Very interesting halacha. In general, if you sell a home, we'll say so. A home includes the house, obviously the property, does not include any pits or cisterns. Pits or cisterns are not included in the sale of the home, Rashi says. Fine. So what's the halacha? Not only that, Rabbi Kiva says that halacha l'maisa, even though the seller maintained the pits and the cisterns, nevertheless, halacha l'maisa, he must buy back, the seller must buy back a pathway. In other words, I will say, here's one problem. I sell my house to Ruvain, right? And that includes the house, that includes the fields. It doesn't include the pit and the cisterns. So I sell him the pit and the cistern. What's my only problem? Is access. How do I get there? Rabbi Akiva says you have to buy back access to the pit and the cistern. Rashi says, V'tzarech, mocher likach lo derech min halokeach, lelich baba osa barbados, shar kalakarka mocher lo v'lo shir, desvir le mocher ba'ayin yafa mocher. Fine, the Chacham say, Eino tzarech. The Chachamim say, no, you don't have to buy back a path. The Chachamim will say, assume that since you're retaining the pit and the cistern, by definition, what else do you retain? A pathway to your pit and your cistern. Retaining the pit and the cistern is meaningless if you don't have the ability to access it. So they hold that it's understood in the sale that you are retaining for yourself not only the pit and the cistern, but a pathway. Umode Rabbi Akiva bizman she'amar lo chutz me'elu shein tzarech likach lo derech. Also listen to this. Rabbi Akiva holds that if a person explicitly said, I'm selling you my home, with the exception of the bar and the dus, the pit and the cistern, even Rabbi Akiva will agree that what? You do not have to buy back an access road because it's included in the sale. I will say, so what's happening over here? You see, the lashon of chutz me'elu is extra. You don't, when you're selling your home, you don't have to say that the sale excludes the pit and the cistern. That's the default. That's the default. The fact that the person is saying, I'm selling you my home, excluding the pit and the cistern, indicates, according to Rabbi Akiva, that's what? That he's excluding something else from the sale. What else is he excluding from the sale? The pathway to the pit and the cistern. So what do you see from here? That according to Rabbi Akiva, whenever you go ahead and you say something extra and unnecessary, you are coming to include something else. Alma, kevan de lo tzarech v'ka'amar, l'tafuye milsa ka'asi. Therefore, halacha l'maisa, whenever you say something additional that is unnecessary, you are coming to include something additional. Therefore, I will say again, the logic over here is, this is Rabbi Huda's logic. Therefore, Rabbi Huda says like this, when you say malo kamasi or malo kamasi instead of just komasi, you're coming to include something else. The word malo is extra. So what is malo coming to include? Whereas kamasi means a stiff staff of silver, the full measure of my height or my stature. Melo kamasi ultimately means what? The full height, but it does not have to be stiff. It's possible to be bendable. Good. Good. Omdi mahu. So what happens if a person pledges, right? Omdi. Omdi means my standing, right? Rashi says, "Mi have a mashma sharvit kamasa olo." Is omdi the same thing as komasi or not? Or Amud Beis, a person says, "Rachbo," I pledge my width. Yeshiva so, my sitting. Ovyav, my thickness. Hekifo, my circumference. I will say, what happens if a person says these lashonos? What's the status? Teku. I say the Gemara is not exactly sure what to do with these particular statements in terms of your commitment to the Beis HaMikdash. Good. Mishkal Yadiyah. I supposed to remember again, the Mishnah spoke about what happens if a person pledges the weight of their arm. So remember again, we had a fundamental machlokes. Ultimately, again, how to measure that weight. Machlokes, Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yossi. Right, Machlokes Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi Yossi. So here we go. The Gemara is going to restate it. Tan Rabbanon, Mishkal Yadi Mishkal Ragli Alai. We'll say what happens if a person says, I hereby pledge the weight of my arm or the weight of my foot to the Beis Hamikdash. So we'll say, so what is the halacha? Rabbi Yehuda says, Rabbi Yehuda takes the barrel approach. Mevi chavis umemali mayim. I go ahead and I bring a barrel filled with water. Umachnis biyad ad ha'atzil. And you insert the arm up until the armpit. Atzil literally means the armpit. Uberegel ad ha'akuva. And with your foot, again, it's the same thing with the foot, you insert it up until the knee. So the arm until the armpit, the foot until the knee. And what happens? We'll say you displace the water. Then what do you do? Bishokel basar chamar gidim va'atzamos v'nosein losocha ad shetismale. And then you go ahead and you take an amount of donkey flesh, and that's included with flesh, sinews, bones. You put it in the barrel until you bring back the water level to what it was. And what happens? And then Rabbi will say, now you understand, based on that weight of meat, that is going to be the weight of your arm, that is going to be the weight of your leg. Why donkey meat? And even though, again, I will say, the truth is, there's no per se raya or explicit halacha, there's a zecher, which means there's a scriptural allusion. Shene'emar asher basar chamorim bisaram. What says the pasuk in Yecheskel says, actually referring to the Mitzrim, that their flesh was like the flesh of donkeys. So ultimately, again, you see a comparison between human flesh and donkey flesh. Good. Amrli Rabbi Yossi. So we'll say this is Rabbi Yehuda's. This is Rabbi Yehuda's mechanism for determining the weight of the arm and the weight of the leg. Rabbi Yossi comes along. Amrli Rabbi Yossi. Heich efshar lechavin basar keneged basar, gidim keneged gidim, atzamos keneged atzamos. So we'll say Rabbi Yossi comes along and says, I don't understand. The truth is, it's a very imprecise science. That's not going to yield you the exact weight of the arm or the exact weight of the foot, right? Literally, what it means is, how can you ensure that the flesh is the same, that the mass of the flesh, of the bones, of the tissues, of the sinews? So what Rabbi Yossi essentially is saying is that's an imprecise measurement. Amrli Rabbi Yehuda Omdin. Rabbi Yehuda says, you're right. I'm not disagreeing with you. This doesn't yield an exact measurement, but it yields, Omdin, I will say, Omdin means what? An assessment, right? Oh, not an assessment. An estimation, thank you. It's an estimate. It's an estimate. Amar Rabbi Yossi says, okay, I'm in agreement with you, it's an estimate, but after you're really just arriving at an estimate, Ad Sha'omdin Yamodu Esayad. Rabbi Yossi says, so then if we're just estimating, I'll save you some time and some effort, and there's no need to go through this whole barrel thing, right? Just find some other easier way of estimating, either by sight or by taking the limb in your hand somehow, some way. But again, you don't have to do the whole barrel thing. So we'll say it's actually quite amazing. For Rabbi Yehuda, Kama de Efshar Avdinan. Rabbi Yehuda says, you're right, this is estimating, but even in the world of estimation, you still have to try to do your best. We'll say, so this is really like an incredible fundamental life machlokes over here as well. That what happens when you know that what it is that you have to do has no possibility of perfection. So we'll say Rabbi Yehuda essentially teaches us, which is how we paskin, that halacha l'maisa, you try the best given the circumstances you have. Even though at the end of the day, I know the result will be highly imperfect. And the result will just be an estimate, right, of what it should be. Nevertheless, halacha l'maisa in life, you just have to try to the best of your abilities. Rabbi Yossi essentially says, once you know it's an estimate, don't even attempt this whole thing. What you supposed to understand, what Rabbi Yehuda says is like this: Rabbi Yossi, I'm agreeing it's an estimate, but don't you agree that if you try my approach, you'll get a little bit closer to the MS than if you don't try it at all? So Rabbi Yossi doesn't respond to this. Rabbi Yossi says, come on, cut it out. Once you're estimating, just let's keep life easy. Rabbi Yehuda says, even in the world of estimate, right? Ultimately, you try your best to arrive at the real answer. You try your best to arrive as close to perfect as possible, recognizing that you're not going to get there, but understanding that you still must try. An incredible yisod. Biyad. Ad ha'atzil. So we'll say, is that true? That for measuring the weight of the arm, we insert the arm up until the armpit. Is that true? Or minhu? We'll say now the Gemara. So we'll say, so understand what's happening over here. So when we say that you insert the arm until the armpit, okay, in the Mishnah it was until the shoulder. Same basic idea. I will say, but understand what is the person saying? A person is making a statement. They're saying mishkal yadi alai, the mishkal, the weight of my yad. So we'll say, understand, what is the Mishnah doing? The Mishnah doesn't even talk it out, but it's on this. So what did the Mishnah just do? It gave us a definition of what? Of yad, right? Of yad. That the Mishnah is teaching that yad, although we normally translate yad as what? As a hand. Yad doesn't mean hand. Yad means from my hand up until my shoulder, armpit. This is my yad. So the Gemara says, is that true? Or the Gemara says, or minu, biyad ada atzil, is that true that the definition of a yad, is until the armpit or until the shoulder? Or minu, I'm going to raise the kasha. Kiddush adayim raglayim b'mikdash ada berak. Say when the Kohen comes to the Beis Hamikdash to wash his hands and feet, there's kiddush adayim raglayim, sanctification of hands and feet. Where does the Kohen have to wash his hands until? His yad until the wrist. So we'll say, what does this seem to indicate to us? That the definition of the hand doesn't extend up until the armpit, but it extends ultimately until the wrist. To which the Gemara says, you're right. Da'oraisa adaprak. Midoraisa, the definition of a hand, or definition of a yad, I should say, is until the wrist. So the Gemara says, Da'oraisa adaprak. Benedarim halach achar lashon bnei adam. Both say when nedarim, and we find this concept in many different places. By nedarim, we go after the vernacular. And when people speak about a yad, what are they talking about? The entire arm. Yad in the vernacular means the arm. Mida'oraisa, yad means the hand. Right? Yad means the hand up until the wrist. Right? In the vernacular, in Nidarim, yad means the arm in its entirety. So the Gemara says, is that true? Udoraisa adaprak, is that true that Midoraisa, biblically speaking, the hand is only until the wrist? V'ha gabi tefillin. I will say when it comes to tefillin, dichsiv yadcha, the pasuk says you have to place tefillin on your yad. And how do we darshan? V'tana debei menashe yadcha zuki boras. Both say the yad is the bicep. Right? Where do you have to put the bias? You put the bias on the bicep. So we'll say, so daraisa kiboras. You're right. Midaraisa yad means up until the bicep. The Gemara says kiboras kula, and we'll say when we say kiboras kula, really again that takes you into the close enough to the armpit region as well. That this is not a stira to what we said before. B'nedarim halach achar lashon b'nei adam. And by nedarim, when a person says mishkal yadi alai, so we go after the vernacular. And when people speak about a yad, they're really referring to the arm in its entirety. What about kiddush adayim vraglayim, where we said that yad over there just means up until the wrist? The kiddush adayim vraglayim b'mikdash hilchasa gemirila. And I will say when it comes to sanctification of the hands and feet, the fact that we only do it to the wrist, that is a halacha l'Moshe misinai. Halacha l'Moshe, as well say. So it turns out something very interesting. So it turns out that midda oraisa, the definition ultimately again of the arm, of a yad, seems to go in two different directions. According to one possibility, so let's go with the last approach. Midda oraisa, the definition of a yad is what? Up until the bicep. Up until the bicep. Then what happens? Yet when we go ahead but yet when a person says mishkal yadi alai, we go after the vernacular. The vernacular is what? Up until the armpit or the shoulder. And I will say, what about kiddush adayim vraglayim? That's halacha l'Moshe misinai. That is only until the wrist. Okay. So says the Gemara. Beregel. So now let's focus on the foot. Beregel adar kuva. When it comes to the foot, the definition of a foot is until the knee. So we'll say, so really again, see, we have to redefine our definitions a little bit. When it comes to the Nedarim, you see, again, we normally translate yad as hand. It turns out that by Nedarim, the vernacular says yad is the arm. Regel is really the foot/leg, not just the foot. So the Gemara says, "Beregel adar kuva." So therefore, again, if a person pledges his regel, the weight of his regel to the Beis Hamikdash, that's the weight of the foot and the leg up until the knee, or minu. The Gemara is, we'll say when referring to the to the Yamim Tovim. The Torah calls them regalim. Right? There are 3 regalim. What do we learn from here? Why does the Torah call it regalim? Prat leba'alei kabin. Rabbi say it comes to go ahead and exclude ba'alei kabin. If you look at Rashi, Rashi's ba'alei kabin. Misha nechtach raglo beperek rishon samach l'shoko v'choke kav mekabel kesisin v'nosein shoko l'socho korin, whatever that is word, shepater mihariyah de'ein lo regel amalo mikri regel ela ad parak alif shekorbav. So let's listen to this. So interesting halacha. Let's say a person is missing their foot and has a prosthetic. So the halacha is such a person is pater from aliyah l'regel. Why? Because lashon of regel is raglayim, regalim, raglayim, meaning that you have feet to be able to walk up to the Beis Hamikdash. If you are missing one of your feet, then halacha l'maaseh you are pater from aliyah l'regel. But I will say, for our purposes, what do you see? That what's the definition of regel? Definition of regel is a foot. A foot, not a foot and a leg up until the knee, but by definition, a foot. To which the Gemara says, you're right. B'nedarim halach achar lo shomerei adam. Midda oraisa, Rabbi say, the regel seems to be a foot up until the ankle. That's the definition of a regel midda oraisa. By nedarim, we follow the vernacular, and in the vernacular, regel means from the foot up until the knee. The Gemara says, udoraisa prat la bali kabin. Rabbi say, so bali kabin literally means, what Rashi is saying over here is someone who wears a prosthetic, right? Someone ultimately, again, who has like a stump by the ankle, and that stump is inserted ultimately into the prosthetic. So the Gemara says, is that true? That you're telling me midda oraisa, the definition of a regel is just the foot up until the ankle, and therefore first that's someone who's missing a foot. V'hagabe chalitza. What about by chalitza, I will say? What happens by chalitza? Dichsiv raglo, right? The pasuk says, V'niksha yevinto elav leinei azakenim v'cholza na'alo me'al raglo. Pasuk says that the Yavama will take off the shoe me'al raglo from the foot of the Yavam. Vitana cholza min ha'arkuva ulamata chalitza sekshera. And yet Rabbi say we learned that what? That halacha l'maisa, if she did chalitza from the knee and below, the chalitza is kosher. Rabbi say, what does it mean from the knee and below? Listen to this. Look at Rashi. Chalza lemishenechtach regel v'nishtayir bo kitzas min ha'arkuva ulamata chalitza sekshera. Alma ad ha'arkuva regel. Listen to this. Let's say the brother is missing his legs, missing his feet, but he has a little bit of a stump below the knee, and he has some type of shoe that's attached there. So if she were to take off that shoe, that's called chalitza. That's called chalitza. Now, I will say, chalitza is daraisa. And what do you see over here? You see, remember, what did we just said before? We just said before that midaraisa, what's the definition of regel? Midaraisa? The foot. Right? And only benedarim ha'alach achalosh b'nei vernacular means the whole leg. Here I will say, remember again, chalitza is daraisa, and we see that we're using a definition ultimately of below the knee to refer to regel as well. So you see that midaraisa, ultimately again, the regel is below the knee as well. And I will say, the Rashi points out, not only is that contradictory, but that also poses a halachic problem, because now what that means, according to this drasha, even someone who is missing his feet, but has something below the knee, would be chayiv in aliyah l'regel. To which the Gemara says, Shiny Hasam, no, chalitza is different. Why? What does chalitza? Because why chalitza? What does it say? The Amar Kra me'al raglo. They both say the Torah uses lashon me'al raglo. Me'al raglo literally means, the way the Gemara is understanding it over here, it means even above his foot. Rashi says me'al raglo mashma mal sha'al raglo dahinu shok adar kuva. Me'al raglo, the Gemara understands to mean even that which is above the foot. What's above the foot? What's above the foot? The leg up until the knee. So Lashna Me'al Raglo indicates that as long as chalitza is done somewhere between the foot and the knee, we're good to go. If that's the case, then why stop it at the knee? Right? Why not say that Me'al Raglo means even above the knee? To which the Gemara says, Me'al velo Me'al de Me'al. Because we'll say it means from above the foot, and not from something that is above that which is above the foot. So if looking at the leg at 3 different parts, you'll have the foot, the leg, and the thigh, which is above the knee. So ultimately, Me'al Raglo teaches me that even that part that is above the foot, i.e. the leg, up until the knee, is still a usable place for chalitza, but that which is me'al de me'al, that which is above, i.e. the thigh above the knee, will not be usable for chalitza. Shmamina, we learn from here a very important halacha. Hai istaria, ad ar nochis. The way we look at the ankle is that we look at the ankle as a solid bone structure that extends all the way down to the bottom of the foot. And I will say we don't look at the ankle as a bone that is separate from the rest of the bones of the foot, but rather we look at the ankle as fusing together with the bottom bone structure of the foot to create one comprehensive bone structure. Why is that? Mifsak pasik havile istaria me'al vishoka me'al de me'al. Because if not, then you'd have to say that what? That there's the regel. If the ankle was separate than the foot, then the ankle itself would be me'al, and then the leg would be me'al de me'al, which would mean that chalitza cannot be done on the leg. The fact that chalitza can be done on the leg indicates to us that what? That halacha l'maaseh, the ankle is considered to be a chelek of the rest of the bone structure of the foot to create one comprehensive bone unit. Ravashi says, afilu tema mifsak basing, even if it's not considered to be one comprehensive bone structure, called the behade kara kekara dami. Ultimately, again, that which is directly above the foot can be considered to be part of the foot itself. Good. I will say that concludes that sugya. Incredible sugya. Mishnah, we'll say let's at least begin the next part. We'll say if the person pledges the value of his hand. So remember again, before we were dealing with the weight, now we're dealing with the value of the hand. So what's the halacha? Shamin oso kamu shava biyad ubelo yad. We assess how much is this person worth with his hand, how much is he worth without his hand, and I will say that difference is what he will pay. That difference represents the value of his hand. And I will say this ultimately again represents a chumrah of nidarim over erchin. How so? If a person says, I pledge the erech of my arm to the Beis HaMikdash, what do they have to pay? Nothing. That statement is meaningless. Remember again, if you pledge a non-essential part of the body, in erchin, that statement is meaningless. Yet, when it comes to dumim vows, when it comes to value vows, if you pledge the value of your arm does have a value. Your value of your arm is the difference for which if you were a slave, you would be sold with an arm, versus if you didn't have an arm. That difference represents the value of your arm. Says the Gemara, Heichi Shaminale, how do we actively assess this? Amarava Umdin Oso Omed Shal Nezikin. The truth is we use the same assessment mechanism as damages. Rashi says, Umdin Shal Omed Shal Nezikin, Kimosha Umdin Adam Shekita Lo Richaveiro Yodo, Shamanoso Kevranim Karbashuk Kamahu Yafa Kodam Lachain, Vichamu Yafash. So we assess it like damages. Now damages are multifaceted payments, but on the most basic level, when assessing the value of a limb, we look how much would a slave get if he had two arms versus how much would he have if he had one arm. To which the Gemara says, how can you compare it? Hasam Gavra Zeluhu. So we'll say, actually, you know what? We'll stop over here for today with Amrli Abaye. Share with you a short idea on the parasha. So we'll say there's an incredible episode that occurs. Well, an incredible, dramatically tragic episode which occurs in the parsha, the machlokes team Moshe Rabbeinu and Korach. Of course, it's not really, we call it the machlokes of Moshe and Korach, but it's not really machlokes of Moshe and Korach. It's much more a machlokes, ultimately, again, of Korach with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's a machlokes of Korach with Klal Yisrael that's framed in some type of struggle for equality, but is no struggle for equality. It's a power struggle. Korach wanting the reins of power, Korach wanting the authority and the kavod for himself. So we'll say, we know the story, right? We know the story. Korach refuses to back down. The earth opens up, swallows up Korach and his followers. The 250 Nesiim that Korach appointed ultimately are wiped out. A terrible, tragic setback for Klal Yisrael. The Rebbe, Rav Bunah Pshischa, asks a very interesting idea. He says, I never saw this question, never thought about this question, never saw it before. He says, how come Moshe Rabbeinu was unsuccessful in diffusing this situation? Moshe Rabbeinu was lahavdil batting 1,000. right? Meaning every single time there was a crisis, he was always able to diffuse it, right? There was no crisis that Moshe Rabbeinu was unable to diffuse. Whether it was at Kriyas Yamsuf, at Mara, the Slav, Chet HaEgel, Chet HaMeraglim, anything and everything that went wrong, Moshe Rabbeinu was able to save the day. Now again, saving the day doesn't mean there aren't repercussions, right? Saving the day means that doesn't mean that it's not an onesh. But again, in each and every one of those circumstances where there was an existential threat to Klal Yisrael, Moshe Rabbeinu was always able to step in and was able to diffuse. It appears that the one time Moshe Rabbeinu was unable to diffuse a circumstance was by Korach. To the point, remember again, you hear Moshe Rabbeinu's exasperation when he turns to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and he says to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Al tefen el minchasam. Dramatic statement. Do not accept their offerings. Do not, and Rashi HaKadosh says that what that's actually a reference to is what? Do not even accept their portions in the communal offerings. That's what Moshe Rabbeinu was saying. So ask the Rebbe, I'll quote you his words. Mipnei marlo Allah bidei Moshe Rabbeinu lahashkin shalom b'machane Yisrael. Such a profound question. Why was Moshe Rabbeinu unsuccessful in ultimately going ahead and restoring shalom into the camp of Klal Yisrael? Why was he unsuccessful in diffusing the rebellion of Korach? But the Rebbe gives such a dramatically amazing answer. He quotes the pasuk in Perek Tes Zayin pasuk Yud Beis, chapter 16, verse 12. Vayishlach Moshe likro l'dasan v'la'aviram b'nei Aliyav. Moshe sent a messenger to go ahead and retrieve Dasan and Aviram, to bring Dasan and Aviram, the son of Eliyav, to come and to talk. Let's talk this out. Vayomru lo na'ala. And they said, we will not come to you, Moshe Rabbeinu. Says there was something amazing. Do you know why Moshe Rabbeinu was unable to make peace? Why he was unable to make shalom? Get ready for this. Mipnei shemoshe lo hitriach es atzmo lovoi lehem uleshadlam b'divrei pius v'ritzui. Because Moshe Rabbeinu did not go himself to try to make shalom with us. Now, both say, to stick up for Moshe Rabbeinu for just a moment. He did go once, but the second time he does not go himself. And says the Rebbe, because he did not go himself, Ela yashav ba'ohel v'shalach likra osam shiavo elav, and he sent a messenger and asked them to come to him, lochein yarat haderech leneged hashalom. Therefore, shalom could not occur. Says the Rebbe Rabbeinu Pshischa. Do you know why Moshe was unable to make shalom? Because he didn't go out himself. Because he sent the agent, he sent the messenger to go call people to him. So the Rebbe teaches us two incredible lessons. Number one, a din in shalom. If you want shalom in your life, you want shalom in your marriage, you want shalom with your parents, you want shalom with your kids, you want shalom with your friends, if you want it, you have to take it yourself. The only person who can make shalom in your life relationships is you. No, there is no intermediary for shalom. There might be an intermediary to set up the meeting. There might be an intermediary ultimately to kind of lay the groundwork. But if you want shalom in your life with people in your life, you have to take that by the reins. And the moment you outsource shalom to someone else is the moment that shalom. You see a lot of times when people have relationship fallouts, they like to outsource it. We all like to do this. Why do I like to outsource it? Because it's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable to deal with parents, with children, with friends, with family, with business, whatever it is, with people who I don't have a warm relationship to. So I like someone to intervene. That's fine, but it doesn't usually work out. V'haraya, if it didn't work out for Moshe Rabbeinu, it's most probably not going to work out for you as well. If you want shalom in your life, you have to take those strained relationships yourself and try to make shalom out of them. But the Rebbe is not just teaching us a din in shalom. He's teaching us something else as well, which is, I'll say a lot of times in life, the reason why we don't accomplish the things we want to accomplish is because we outsource our success to others. Right? I know what I want to do, I know what I have to do, but I need you to do this, and I need you to do this, and I need everybody to do their pieces. Once everybody does their pieces, then I'll be able to do my chelik. I both say in life it doesn't work that way. If you want something, if you want to accomplish something, if you have finish lines you want to cross, dreams you want to actualize it, you have to grab life yourself. There is no shaliach, there is no intermediary to success. The moment you begin to outsource your success to others is the moment you get absolutely nowhere in life. If you want it, do it. If it's important, own it. If it has to get done, Don't say Yankel Chaim. Everyone else needs to do their parts. I could do. Own your life. As we always say, the buck of your life stops with you. Who you become and who you don't become is in your hands. You can't blame your mother. You can't blame your father. You can't blame your wife. You can't blame your kids. You can't blame your friends. What you do become and what you don't become is because of the effort you put in and the decisions you make. It's scary because then the buck of my life stops with me, but it's incredibly invigorating. Because if you have the reins, then you can make of yourself what you want to become. Even the great Moshe Rabbeinu, when he outsources something to someone else, at the end of the day loses out. Moshe Rabbeinu says there was something very scary. Moshe Rabbeinu could have changed this dynamic, the Rebbe says. Moshe Rabbeinu could have gone ahead and changed the tide, but he made the fatal flaw of outsourcing his leadership success to someone else. The moment you outsource your shalom, the moment you outsource your success to someone else, is the moment you lose out on incredible life opportunities.